What I found in a few cities was that they were reprioritizing public space in a way to increase the efficiency of the overall transportation system. And Hague is doing this, so this isn't a revolutionary idea. But in terms of the policies that I examined in these places, I found this to be one of the most effective ways to continue to increase the quality of the bicycle and increase the usage. The city of Amsterdam is implementing the plus nets concept, which is almost a reconfiguration of their entire transportation system within the city. They're so space constrained that they cannot accommodate every mode of transportation on every street. So in the United States, we have a concept called complete streets. And I'm not sure how it works here, but in the United States, there's this massive effort to provide every mode of transportation on every street. And it's not realistic in some spaces, especially when you have really tight streets, especially in the older city center that was created before cars even existed. So they launched this concept in 2013, and what they're doing on streets is they're assessing what mode should have priority on these streets. So on street X, it might be biking and walking. On street Z, it might be the tram and bikes. And they're reconfiguring their entire transportation network. It's a long-term vision, but essentially what you'll have is more mode preferences. So bicycles will have specific routes of the city that they can travel. So you're starting to see on a larger scale the way cities are starting to reprioritize their public spaces. And most of the time that usually leads to reduced car accessibility and ends up benefiting cyclists, pedestrians, and public transport. So the reason I highlight this, like I said, The Hague is in many ways refiguring their public space, but I'm just urging the city to continue to do so because it's a very effective way at increasing the transportation system's efficiency and also happens to benefit the bicycle, which was one of the points of my study, was how to increase bicycle usage. So within The Hague, trips from 1 to 7.5 kilometers, 35% are done by bikes, 25%. When you get into the 7.5 to 15 kilometer range, it's about 10% of trips. So 25% to 10% of trips. And a lot of cities, with the advent of the e-bike, which is accounting for about a third of bike sales in the Netherlands, are starting to invest in these regional bicycle networks, because e-bikes can, based on a lot of studies and analysis, can increase trip duration for bicycles up into that 15 kilometer range. Any trips beyond that 15 kilometer range are kind of where the e-bike kind of tapers off a bit. And within The Hague, 75% of workers live within 15 kilometers of their job. But these stats aren't brand new. I actually got them from one of the documents that exists within The Hague. So this isn't new information, but what is new is that a lot of cities are starting to invest in their regional bicycle infrastructure because they recognize the additional trip captures that they can get with these longer distance rides. So in Enschede, they have the famous F35. There's a picture here, and this is Haran. I interviewed him. So right now the F35 is about 60 kilometers, and they're doing an analysis study to expand that system into Germany. So they're collaborating with some of the cities in Germany and the province there, but it's going to really help increase their regional connectivity. You're seeing all these, and actually Leiden, I interviewed their policymaker there, and they're actually, for their moving forward for their bicycle planning, they're prioritizing the expansion of the regional system more than their in-town network. They have about 40% in-town ridership, and their in-town network is relatively built out. So they're actually prioritizing the regional expansion. The reason I'm showing you all these, what other cities are doing is to motivate and encourage The Hague to expand their regional network. So I recommend collaboration with the MRDH to expand this regional network. And I think the first step is to create a vision with that group, and then from there execute an actual plan for the hardwares on bicycle parking. Every city I went to was struggling with bicycle parking. I would say of the 10 cities I went to, 8 of them probably would cite it as one of their top 3 priorities, maybe even their top priority for challenges, because bicycle use has increased so much, so rapidly, that cities are playing catch up to really invest in the facilities. So The Hague is not alone in the problems that they face in terms of trying to provide the citizens here with adequate parking. So these are just a few numbers. Amsterdam is planning to build 38,000 spaces in the next 8 years, 90 million euros. Groningen's gonna invest 30 million euros. Eindhoven's investing 16 million euros. Leiden wants to build 12,000 spaces. Rotterdam, Utrecht, Swallow, they're all investing. And The Hague is doing that as well. So this is just more so to showcase you the current state in other places. And moving away, and most of these investments are almost all of these exclusively are targeted at the rail stations. In terms of within the city, a recommendation I have is bicycle parking must be free, convenient, and easy. And The Hague is doing a relatively good job at this. Leeuwarden ran into an issue. They actually have a bicycle parking surplus, but a lot of their bicycle parking wasn't in accessible locations, so people weren't using it, and they were just kind of leaving their bikes in the city center. They recently built a new Fietsenstalling in the city center that's cool looking, nice logo, accessible, and now they're starting to build these. But it's a lesson learned that bicycle parking should be convenient. A lot of people and myself included, that cycle, when I go somewhere, I don't want to park my bike and walk 3 blocks to the destination. I want to walk maybe half a block and then be able to park my bike. So it's more of a kind of reinforcement that we continue to provide parking that is accessible and free. I'm from the United States, very car-centric dominated country. And one of the reasons why is because, in the 1950s and onwards, there was heavy marketing campaigns by car companies to market and promote the automobile, along with investment in infrastructure that created a car-dominant society. But nonetheless, there's still a very strong perception, or almost a lack of awareness of how to get around without the automobile. And I think even here in the Netherlands, there's still a very strong perception of the freedoms associated with the car, the symbol of status. And I feel that the bicycle needs a similar level of marketing and investment to showcase to people that it is an effective form of transportation. And I love this. I was in Amsterdam, and this is right by the central station, and they have this, Amsterdam loves the Fiets logo. And it's very, when you're in Amsterdam, I think they do an excellent job of really branding themselves as a bicycle city. You see it everywhere. People around the world know that Amsterdam is a bicycle city. And a lot of other cities are doing really good jobs in creating bicycle brands. So Groningen has the Groningen Cycling City, and they use their 050 city code to create a bicycle logo. Utrecht has the We All Cycle logo. Rotterdam has the Fietsfan 010. So all these cities have this, and I have it on my water bottle. They give me a sticker. So all these cities have these logos, these ways of branding, of associating themselves as a culture of cycling, and that it's an actual transportation symbol. So my recommendation is that The Hague create a city cycle brand to affirm the importance of the bicycle as that symbol. And this doesn't have to be an expensive marketing campaign and all that, but I think some logos should be created, and at the very least utilize in all your communications going forward. And in terms of branding on an infrastructure level, Eindhoven has the Snelfiets route, which is you coming around the city, and on these routes they have this little S logo. So it's a really simple, effective way of branding your infrastructure so citizens know what you're on. So for example, here we're creating the Snelfiets routes, and it's a really exciting endeavor that The Hague is taking on. But how do you know if you're on the Snelfiets route? Yeah, you don't, because there's no branding, there's no marketing. And I think we need to brag a little bit more about the cool things we're doing and showcase and tell people, because if you don't tell them, you can't just assume they're gonna know. There's a certain small percentage of people that are very aware of what's going on in the city and they pay attention. But the majority of the population needs to be informed in a more direct way. I think Groningen is another great example. They implemented the Zernike route, which has the branding there. It was a route for the students coming into the campus. and they handed out energy drinks with their map on the can, and it really increased ridership. So this is another great branding example. Equally, or maybe even more important part is citizen engagement. And so the reason, in my opinion, the reason the Netherlands has the infrastructure it has, which is the best in the world, is because of citizen engagement. After World War II, a lot of cities in the Netherlands were bombed and rebuilt, and even if they weren't rebuilt, they were changed with the advent of the automobile, about 1950s, 1960s. And with that came a lot of safe traffic fatalities. And the Stop the Kindermoord movement and the Fietsenbaan were established, and all these, grassroots citizen-based agencies demanded safer infrastructure. And the politicians and the transportation professionals responded to that by creating the best infrastructure for cycling in the world. But I feel in a lot of ways that the citizens have been a little forgotten in terms of their engagement in the public planning process. And my recommendation is to engage the public in the planning process at the forefront. Eindhoven did a really cool thing. So they had this controversial plan to transfer one of their main streets and reduce car accessibility. And anytime you reduce car accessibility, for the most part, the public is opposed. So they were like, well, we know this is gonna work, so let's show people how this is gonna work. And they created a 3D model, so you can go on their website and click on it, and you can be guided through the visual map of what it will look like. So they're showcasing to the public how this works. And it was very effective, and they actually are in the approval process, and this project will likely get implemented. It's because they engaged the public. They knew there'd be a lot of public opposition, so they educated them about the process, and they showed them the results. The last recommendation is about engaging non-cyclists. And me being here and being a foreigner here and understanding that there's a high immigrant population here, 50%, I was really interested in what barriers exist that are preventing them from cycling. Everyone knows they tend to cycle less, but nobody really knows why. I've heard a lot of because they're not part of the Dutch culture, and that's kind of where it stops. So I started asking cities, like, what are you guys doing to encourage non-cyclists? What's working, what isn't? And I really like what Rotterdam is doing. So they partnered with DRIFT, which is the Dutch Research Institute for Transition, and they're executing a few projects within their communities to really kind of overcome some of those barriers. And one of the ones I really like is the Mobility Happiness in the Feyenoord neighborhood. And what they're doing is over this month, they're doing customized focus groups with members of that community. And they're just sitting down and having conversations and asking them questions like, what's your perception of cycling? What barriers exist? What would get you to cycle more? And then they're gonna implement, based on those focus groups, they're gonna implement the outcomes of those meetings over the next 3 months. So my recommendation to The Hague is to invest in customized focus groups with these communities and sit down and really have conversations and understand what the barriers are. Maybe some of the people don't want to cycle, and that's fine, but for those that do, understand what's preventing them from cycling. It's going to take a fair amount of time and investment and customized intention, but I believe if you utilize this approach, it will be very effective. And another great example that I saw was identifying members in the communities that are already doing great things. So Mama Agatha in Amsterdam, they actually made a movie on her. It's like in the Sundance Film Festival. But she does weekly cycle lessons with immigrant women in Amsterdam. She's from Ghana, West Africa. And she does women-only cycle lessons once a week. She's been doing it since 2009. In Rotterdam at the BMX Speed School, Sharon, who's from Curaçao, does BMX school-related lessons. So the concept is that he teaches them how to cycle through the sport of BMX to encourage children to get into cycling. So both of these members, Mama Agatha and Sharon, are members of these communities that are encouraging people to cycle. I'm not recommending that the Hague take these two and bring them here, but that the municipality finds members within the community here to further bolster cycling usage through workshops and through encouragement. So find members within the communities here and support them in their efforts. So to conclude, The Hague is doing a great job of reprioritizing public space. Continue to do that. Bicycle parking, great job, thumbs up. Keep looking for flexible opportunities and make sure it's accessible. And then the opportunity areas, really the soft things: marketing, create a city brand, engage the citizens through the public planning process through temporary demonstrations, encouraging non-cyclists, invest in those customized focus groups, and find those community members that are going to help catalyze cycling, and then expanding the regional bicycle network. So I went to 10 cities in here. For me, this is an amazing opportunity to be an American and come to the country that has the best cycling infrastructure and ridership and safety in the world, and interview all these amazing people. I believe that bicycle usage in The Hague will increase in the coming years. The ridership targets you have, you will meet, and I think cycling will continue to increase over the next decades. I think future efforts are really going to have to be focused on accommodating this growth. Going to like Groningen and Amsterdam and Utrecht, I don't want to say they have too many bikes, because you can never have too many bikes, but it's a problem. It's a good problem, but it's still a problem trying to manage all that growth and where to park all these people, where do all these people ride their bikes, the routes. So having kind of a foresight of those are going to be your next challenges will help you in the future. Thank you to all of you. This has probably been the coolest professional thing I've done in my life, to be here, to go to all these cities, to interview all these people. And there's a lot of people that I didn't get to take pictures of that I interviewed. But thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.